Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07 on O'Connor and Company. Thank you for tuning in here this Tuesday morning. Thanks for letting us be a part of your morning commute. 7:05 brings us Nick Minock, Channel 7. 7:35, Mary Margaret Olahan, Daily Wire. And at 8:05, Joe Concha, Fox News Channel. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Wait, what did you call it? Good
morning. That's when I pretend to be Irish. I was surrounded by the other three O'Connor brothers all weekend.
Okay.
So, I'm like, we joke around and act Irish, even though we're not very Irish.
Now we share some similar roots now. Remember that I've told you my island was colonized by the
You're
British.
More Irish than I am, Patrice. That's my guess.
Well, no, I'm less Irish, but I'm more Irish than Elizabeth Warren is Indian, Native American.
So we do have
let's put it that way.
Yes. Well, thank you to Andrew Langer and Bethany Mandel for sitting in yesterday. Julie Gunlock's on vacation, so you're going to get a little potpourri of various voices this week. And Patrice kicks it off this Tuesday. Thank you, Patrice.
Sure.
Well, very excited that today is the day, finally, where we get the launch of Kamala Harris's book. There have been some excerpts printed out there. The embargo was lifted for reporters to write about, so a lot of the revelations pretty much have already been printed. But Kamala Harris she's cashing in. She's getting her big payday. And it's not pretty. It's not pretty for her, and it's not pretty for anyone else who she's trying to throw under the bus, including the Bidens and Pete Buttigieg and Tim Walz, et cetera, et cetera. Last night she appeared on Rachel Maddow. And, well, let's take a listen to some of the. Now, one thing that she's going to have to be prepared for is that she's going to do these interviews like Maddow last night. And the interviewers are not going to say, so please sit here and tell me what's in your book. No, they're going to ask her about what's going on in the news. Yeah. And, well, she's going to sound kind of silly. Here's a cut 6. Here's Maddow reacting to the news that ABC's bringing Jimmy Kimmel back, sort of.
Talk about the power being with the people and the people making that clear with their checkbooks as it relates to the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel. We saw the power of the people over the last few days, and it spoke volumes, and it moved a decision in the right direction.
So this is fascinating. Again, if I were Rachel Maddow, I'd lean forward and say, can you just explain something to me? Why wasn't it the power of the people when thousands, tens of thousands complained to ABC about Jimmy Kimmel's remarks, which led to him being taken off the air? Isn't that also the power of the people? But she couldn't.
She doesn't think that way.
No, neither of them do.
It's interesting that she would go to Rachel Maddow, but I guess that's probably the top-rated leftist news outlet.
Yeah, no, this is where she's going to sell books. Everything she's doing here is about a cash out. She's just trying to get the money. Here she is rewriting history about 2024. Take a listen to this one, cut 7.
We had a president of the United States running for re-election. 3.5 months from the election, decides not to run. The sitting vice president enters the race against a former president of the United States who's been running for 10 years. With 107 days to go. And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
Wait, what? What data is she looking at? Because it wasn't close.
I mean, in the 21st century, Bush versus Gore was like the closest election ever.
Yeah.
Let alone in the 20, and which was also in the 21st century, by the way. Joe Biden.
Is it just delusion? I mean,
Trump beat Kamala Harris in the Electoral College votes in the raw vote by like 230,000 votes. Trump beat Hillary in 2016 by 77,000. Biden, we're told, beat Trump in 2020 by 43,000. I mean, she's just rewriting history. Also, the name of her book is 107 Days, and you just heard it. First of all, she didn't point out the circumstances under why the incumbent president decided at the last minute to pull out of the race, which I think is kind of part of the story, number one. But number two, she knew going in she only had 107 days. She could have easily stepped aside and said, no, too much. It's so annoying that she's allowed to get away with this. Well, what do you expect? We only had 107 days. You knew that. The second you said, yes, I'll take the nomination, that excuse goes away. But
before we even get to 107 days, Larry, she was handed the nomination. She didn't have to get one primary vote. She didn't have to actually have a race against anyone as a challenger. She was literally just, she walked right into it. And so to pretend like she's the underdog, she's David versus Goliath, we're not buying that argument.
Yeah. She then went on to, do your typical slandering of Donald Trump. And again, she used language that many of us believe led to a evil, demented young man to try to put a bullet into not only Donald Trump's head, but into Charlie Kirk's as well. Cut 8, here we go.
A tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now, Donald Trump. And these titans of industry are not speaking up.
So Donald Trump is a tyrant and likening him to a communist dictator. By the way, we actually have a communist, Zohran Mamdani, running for mayor in New York, and she couldn't call him a communist, but she called Donald Trump a communist.
The irony is too sweet. She's pitiful.
Now, I was very excited to hear what the exchange would be between Rachel Maddow and Kamala Harris over what has already been revealed that Kamala Harris says in her book, that she really wanted Pete Buttigieg to run. But she couldn't choose him because he's gay. And, of course, Rachel Maddow is openly gay. And so one expects Rachel Maddow to approach that topic in particular in a somewhat confrontational way. So what are you saying? You're saying that he can't be vice president or president because he's gay? You're saying the American people would never vote for him because he's gay? Because that's basically what she said. She said that the American people were not ready
too bigoted
for a black woman and a gay man on the ticket, which, yes, is 100% saying that America is full of bigots and it's just too much to ask for them to overcome. So what happened when Rachel Maddow confronted Kamala Harris on this very issue? It's fascinating, and you will hear it coming up in just a moment as we reflect on Kamala Harris's big night last night with Rachel Maddow selling her book. We'll get to it next. But first, it's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Kamala Harris saying that America is not ready to pick a gay vice president obviously undermines. It gives you her opinion of you as a voter and as a bigot. It also, by the way, undermines Pete Buttigieg's attempt to get the nomination for 2028. And maybe that's why she said this, because maybe Kamala Harris still wants to run. And this is her backhanded way of sort of planting the seed with voters that Pete Buttigieg shouldn't be the Democrat nominee because he's gay after all. Either way, here's Kamala Harris sitting across from an openly gay news host in Rachel Maddow. And Rachel Maddow wants to know what the hell she's talking about. So take a listen.
I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear. With you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for President of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for President of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So
pause it. I'm an ally. Okay, so she says she didn't say that Pete Buttigieg couldn't be on the ticket because he's gay, and then in explaining first she tries to blame Trump. Well, we were running against Trump, and he would have said really mean things. And he would go low,
and yeah.
Right. But secondly, she wanted Pete Buttigieg, but chose not to put him on because he's gay, and then goes on to say, I didn't say he couldn't be on the ticket because he's gay, which is exactly what she did say.
So she just denied what she said. I mean, she contradicted herself.
Right, within the same answer.
Within the same answer. But, Larry, she exposed her own bigotry. I mean, let's be honest here. If she really is an ally, what better a message she could send and create a contrast between the two tickets than to bring Pete Buttigieg on, especially if Pete Buttigieg would have performed better than her real running mate, who was a flop.
That is the funniest.
You know what I mean?
That's the funniest part of it is that, Pete's too gay, so I'll pick Tim Walz. Okay. But yeah, she basically she is 100%. I'm an ally. I support gay issues, and yet when I had the opportunity to elevate
to make the biggest statement, exactly, of support,
couldn't do it. But it's because of those bigoted American voters and that bigoted Donald Trump. All right, so let's hear the end of her answer because it doesn't get any better.
It wasn't about So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but. We had such a short period of time, and the stakes were so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant, and I think America is and would be ready for that. But when I had to make that decision with 2 weeks to go. And maybe I was being too cautious. I'll let our friends, we should all talk about that. Maybe I was. But that's the decision I made. And I, as with everything else in the book, I'm being very candid about that.
Yeah.
With a great deal of sadness about also the fact that it might have been a risk.
And by the way, of course, Maddow let her off the hook.
Come on now.
Yeah. Maddow
should have gone after her on that answer.
Of course.
Come on now.
Of course.
That was
called
such
her
a
out on
cop-out.
her hypocrisy, on the fact that she contradicted herself multiple times.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's, listen, there's more here, but I don't know how she attempts to run for the nomination. I think the entire story here is she's just getting the money. She's just done. She's out.
Think of all the bridges she's burning, Larry. I mean, the fact that she's thrown the Bidens completely under the bus, obviously she either thinks that she will never get support from them or the Bidens have been so neutered that they have no more political juice that she would need in the future. So she's thrown them under the bus. I don't know. We haven't heard her talk about the Obamas. Maybe those are probably the only people she's still depending on. But it never strikes me that she was particularly close to Michelle or Barack Obama either. Yeah. So I don't know.
Maddow asked a question about yesterday's executive order about Antifa and calling it Antifa a terrorist organization. Let's go to 10A here. 10A, if we could, Professor. This is the question. It's a very simple, straightforward question.
As a domestic terrorist organization, what is your reaction to those things? What do you think the appropriate response is to things like that?
What do you think the appropriate response is? Very simple question. Okay, so here's the woman who would be president giving her answer. You tell me what this means. Cut 10B.
Well, in normal times, we should and could expect that our courts would step in when asked to declare the legality or illegality of what the president is doing. Because, Civics 101, we all know. We designed our democracy through three co-equal branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the courts.
Did you follow that?
You know who she sounds like, Larry? That sounds like Abigail Spamberger talking about, the courts, and giving you a non-answer. Antifa is a violent group. They are now a terrorist group. Say yes, very good, and we should prosecute terrorists on our lands. But they like Antifa to do their dirty work. So, she's not going to actually say the truth.
Yeah, that's get ready because there's going to be more more Kamala Harris throughout the day. Today's the day for her book launch, so good luck. 6:23.
Okay, coming up, yesterday, President Trump made a major announcement announcing an autism action plan. We'll give you all the details and more. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37. Thanks for tuning in this morning. It's O'Connor and Company. We're going to get you informed and keep you up to date in a moment. You're going to hear about the big announcement yesterday having to do with acetaminophen and concerns over some tests that suggest taking it while pregnant could lead to autism. We're going to give you the details of what we know, what we don't know, what was really announced, and what people are saying about that announcement. Also at 7:05, Nick Minnock will join us. 7:35, Mary Margaret Olahan, and 8:05, Joe Concha. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry.
So let's get into this. And there was some suggestion that the announcement yesterday from the White House would be very sweeping, very definitive. Here's basically the bottom line from the White House and what's now being advised to pregnant women in America. Mm-hmm. The FDA is going to issue a notice to physicians and initiate a safety label change on acetaminophen. Acetaminophen is the generic drug used for Tylenol, commonly known as Tylenol. Research shows a potential association between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes, commonly known as being on the autism spectrum. Prudent use needed during pregnancy and for infants and toddlers. Health and Human Services is going to launch a nationwide public service campaign to inform families and protect public health. Let me just pause right there. This is no different than studies saying that any other behaviors during pregnancy could negatively or adversely affect the unborn child, and also during breastfeeding. My wife, number one, I have never been pregnant, Patrice.
Are you okay?
Since I'm a Democrat, since I'm not a Democrat, I will not suggest that men can be pregnant. But,
Very good.
That's where we are. But I have been a pretty attentive husband to a pregnant woman 4 times. She didn't drink coffee. She didn't drink alcohol. She didn't eat sushi. She, and I'll be honest with you. Now, my last pregnancy with my ex-wife was 18 years ago.
Yes.
I don't remember what she did with regard to Tylenol or any pain relievers. You've been pregnant more recently. Aren't you advised to stay away from all that stuff?
Yes. I can't remember at all taking any sort of pain medicine. The only time I had anything related to pain was my epidural during delivery. And so for all that 10 months of gestation, you stay away from any sort of substance. The only types of tablets I was taking were prenatal vitamins, which is really just to build up my body and to help the baby. Not eating swordfish. I gave up cold cuts. I mean, there are so many things that you give up
cold
because
cuts, that's right, salami. Yeah, that's right.
And by the way, I ate a sandwich at Subway. I just broke that rule, and I got sick, violently sick, and I couldn't take anything when I got sick from Subway. So I mean, yes.
A lot of these precautions, though, are because there could be adverse detrimental effects on the unborn child.
Absolutely.
And then that's why this is, and we know that this is the case. We know that. Especially pharmaceutical use. We know that if a woman is a drug user,
that's right.
From
Smoker,
alcohol to
nicotine.
marijuana to cocaine to meth, a pregnant woman will severely damage that child if they take those drugs. All right, so let's go to cut 13 here. This is Will Cain on Fox showing some of the data with regard to the increase in cases of children on the autism spectrum in this country and comparisons. Take a listen.
Autism is a murky topic. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of taboos setting aside conversations that we should be having about autism. And there's a lot of confusion. So while the president is waiting to speak, let's walk through what we know right now over at the wall. The numbers on autism will blow your mind. Over the years, autism has dramatically increased in America and across the world. In 2022, 1 in 31 8-year-olds were diagnosed with autism. That's a 175% increase over roughly a 10-year period. And curiously, autism seems to be indicating more frequently in boys than in girls. 4 in 100 boys, only 1 in 100 girls diagnosed with autism at the age of 5. Here's another curiosity. It isn't geographically evenly distributed across the United States. Now, for whatever reason, it is occurred more prevalently in a state like California, when you have 30-plus diagnoses of autism per 1,000. States like Missouri, Tennessee, Georgia, Minnesota, and Wisconsin also high rates of autism. Now, why? Well, there's a lot of questions about diagnosis. There's questions about could environmental factors be at play. And that made us wonder as well about what's happening across the world. Take a look at this chart that shows you the prevalence of autism across the world as recently as 2021. This is numbers per 100,000 residents. You see the United States comes in down here at about 1,000 per 100,000. But Singapore, South Korea, Japan, some of the highest rates in the world. All across the Pacific, actually, with Australia, New Zealand, and Brunei. It's also kind of hard to see in a bar graph like this, so we thought we wanted to take a look at it on a map. And it does seem, again, curious. It's largely the highest rates of autism in the Americas and in the East, the Far East. In Europe, still, you're looking at numbers in the 1 to 100 range instead of what we saw in these other countries. So
now, this is very interesting, and certainly something that I believe our government and our public health institutions have not paid nearly enough attention to, and partly many people believe is because that if there is a connection or link to pharmaceuticals or to vaccines, that the public health institutions in this country would rather not discover that, lest they harm the overall public health policies with regard to the use of such pharmaceuticals. We've got more on this. You'll hear from the president's announcement. You'll hear from Marty Makary, the FDA director, and others commenting yesterday on this as well. And quickly, by the way, for those who don't know, if you're just a new listener, my youngest child of my 4 children is on the autism spectrum. He was born and raised in California, and he is also half Asian. All of those factors sort of measure up to what Will Kane was just explaining about much of what we know about demographically here in this country and also in the Far East in Asia. So I just want to throw that out there. I have a personal connection to this, although I have never once, and I am God's honest truth, I have never once spent any amount of time wondering, how did this happen to my child? Because as far as I'm concerned, as his father, my main focus needs to be it's happened, so my job is to make sure that his life is the greatest life it can be, despite whatever challenges he may have. It's that the question as to how this happened to my child is for different people to focus on, and frankly doesn't make a difference in my child's life at this point. My focus has been on that. So more to discuss on this in just a moment. It's a big story. It's a big topic, and it deserves attention. Real, legitimate, sober, and mature attention, which is what we will do next. It's 6:44.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
And by the way, I'm very sensitive to the suggestion that women, moms, might be feeling some level of guilt or remorse if they have a child on the autism spectrum and they know that they took Tylenol. That's not what this announcement has been about, and I don't think a mother should feel anything like that. I mean, obviously, I'm not in your shoes, but I kind of am in my own way, and I don't quite understand why the initial reaction would be guilt, because you did something unknowingly, completely innocent, and you seek professional advice. You're not supposed to know these things, and if you're told no, that's safe, no negative ramifications, it's certainly not in any way a judgment on the behavior of a mother. Now, I could never be in a woman's shoes, but I mean...
Yeah, Larry, guilt is just a natural reaction. I think what's important is having information going forward for the mothers who are pregnant now or will be pregnant in the future. That's really what this is about.
And the fear of inflicting guilt on women who are parents or a mother of an autistic child, the fear of that negative reaction certainly, though should be acknowledged in a sensitive way, should in no way prevent us from pursuing whatever possible information could be helpful in preventing this in the future.
Exactly.
So, I think we should set that aside, frankly, personally. All right, here's Marty McCary, man that we greatly respect here on this program, cut 15.
But for a child, it can be brutal to have autism. Today, the FDA is taking action to update the label on acetaminophen and sending a letter to all U.S. doctors letting them know about the risks in pregnancy. We now have data we cannot ignore. There's a very large study, the Boston Birth Cohort, with researchers that have, from Johns Hopkins, my former institution, and Boston University, found, quote-unquote, consistent associations between acetaminophen in pregnancy and autism. And the Nurses' Health Study, with researchers from Yale, Columbia, and Harvard, looking at 9,000 kids, found that acetaminophen use in pregnancy was associated with neurodevelopmental disorders.
All right, now let's follow this up here, because he then appeared on Chris Cuomo last night, and Cuomo said what you're hearing from a lot of people, which is, listen, these studies aren't definitive, right? Cut 17.
So Harvard does a review of previous studies, and they came up with what I would term as a layman, right, because I'm not a clinician, as a split decision in favor of studies that found that Tylenol may have an association with negative effects, including potential forms of autism.
This research is not a split decision, as you described. 27 studies found an association between prenatal use of acetaminophen and autism. And there were 13 studies that went the other way, but the authors concluded that the higher quality studies favored an association. And if I can just quote the dean of the Harvard School of Public Health, my former institution, quote unquote, there is a causal relationship between prenatal acetaminophen and the neurodegenerative disorders of ADHD and autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah,
that's massive, Larry.
Doesn't sound like a split decision. I get very suspicious of so-called journalists or teleprompter readers like Chris Cuomo who want to mischaracterize these results to sort of push back. I mean, why can't we just let this develop and get more information and study this further? What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think what Dr. McCary said, that last line, there's a causal relationship, him quoting the dean of Harvard, the medical school, whichever school it was, a causal relationship. That's stronger than correlation. Correlation says A and B are happening. We don't know if they're related. Causal says A is leading to B. That is really definitive and very important for every pregnant mother or every pregnant woman out there to know so that they can make the right choice for themselves going forward.
Thank you. And I would say this much, and again, don't take medical advice from me, but just as an observer of all of this, we seem to have more information, more research, more studies that certainly demand further exploration of the idea and maybe some cautious moves with regard to taking acetaminophen while pregnant. Because of this, we have more information connected to that than we certainly had with regard to the COVID shot that we were all told we had to get, that we were told we would get fired from our jobs and drummed out of society if we didn't take. Well, there's been a lot more studies about this issue than we ever had studies on the COVID shot. And I think that's noteworthy. It is 6:53.